What's the big deal about a policy? I'm going to introduce Jo and turn it over to her now, and she's going to take us through the next 40 minutes or so with Sarah and explain to us what is the big deal about policies and what are some of the considerations that should be top of mind as you review the policy you have in place or as you think about creating a new one. So Jo, I'm going to pass it to you here.
Thank you so much, AJ. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to be with you all today. And the way that we're going to do this is when Sarah has a question, a comment, or would like something explained a little bit further for your benefit on behalf of the employer, she's just going to jump right in and ask me to elaborate so that you guys know how we're sort of setting this up today. And I'm really looking forward to that format. I think this is really exciting so that you guys get your questions answered. And then, of course, we'll still have Q&A at the end. But I want to start by saying, you know, someone who has been in the world of drug and alcohol testing now for about 12 years and has worked in policy writing, policy evaluation, policy advisement, not just at the employer level, but even at the state and federal level. I live in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So I was in this world when we changed marijuana laws in our state and actually served on the governor's task force to implement the regulations representing employers' rights to test. So I've seen things change dramatically, obviously, in the last decade, and have been, as AJ mentioned, on the forefront of how employers handle these things. So I want to come at you, I'm going to come at you with a lot of passion because I feel this is so important. And it's important for exactly what AJ mentioned right up at the top. This is going to save a life, and it's going to save many lives over time. So I want us to look at our policies today through that grid. How do we prevent these fatalities? How do we get people safe and healthy to work? And the policy is absolutely everything in the workplace. Everything. It is your Bible. It's your rule of practice. It brings the clarity. It sets the tone. Let me just kind of give like this little disclaimer at top. If you do not have a workplace drug and alcohol policy, which I'm assuming everyone on this webinar today does, but if there's the weird exception out there and maybe you're new in the biz or whatever, and you just don't happen to have one, you may not perform a drug or alcohol test on any of your people until a policy is in place. So that's rule number one, get a policy. Reach out to someone that can help you. You know, there's a variety of ways to do that, but you need a policy like by the end of this week because you are vulnerable, you're liable, you're hanging out there, and there is nothing you can do. You must have something in place and the employees must be aware of it for you to carry out the practice of enforcing your safety program through drug and alcohol testing, okay? So then your policy brings that clarity, it sets the tone, it outlines consequences for violations. And that's something that I really want you all to pay close attention to, because if you just put something in place that says, you know, well, in general, we don't like this overall. And I've seen these. Someone asked me to review their policy a few weeks ago, and they sent me like 3 paragraphs. Doesn't cut it at all. You know, we generally don't like this. We'll do something about it if we have to. You better be warned. Okay, that means absolutely nothing. Your employees need it spelled out in detail. What happens if I do this? What is the consequence? You know, and if not, and they decide to sue you for doing something that you didn't say you were going to do, you don't have a leg to stand on, and we're going to get into that. It also creates accountability for your employees so that they understand. It's just, you know, I hate to make this analogy, but a lot of you know, if you're managers, someone just said this the other day, I didn't realize that I was going to be a glorified babysitter. That's kind of demeaning the role of manager, supervisor, but oftentimes, especially with your younger workforce, they need to learn that there are rules and boundaries in a context in which they must operate. It's not just a free-for-all because we're adults now. So sometimes you're putting those fences up and teaching people that this is what we're going to, this is what we're going to do. And then of course, your policy is that thing that is going to protect you from liability, from culpability. If you have it outlined clearly enough, when you get to a point where weird things happen, and weird things do happen, everything comes down to your policy. And that's why it's so critically important, because if you ever end up in a court of law, which hopefully you won't, but it does happen to good people and good companies, you point back to your policy.